Tonight on the Record obtains shocking new photos of Caylee Anthony partying at a club days after she says her daughter went missing. Caylee is behind bars tonight, a person of interest in what police say may be the homicide of her little daughter, Caylee. Caylee claims she left her daughter with a babysitter on June 9th, and that when she returned to pick her up, little Caylee was gone. It took 5 weeks before the child was reported missing, and now we know what Caylee Anthony was doing for part of that time. These pictures, taken at a club on June 20th, while Caylee says she was conducting her own search for her daughter. John Azzolano and Teddy Piper, the photographers who took these pictures, join us live. Good evening, guys.
How you doing?
John, let me start with you. So you took these photos on June 20th?
Yeah, the night of June 20th. Teddy and I usually work at a club called Fusion. We take a lot of photos there. Caylee was there that night.
How sure are you that it was Friday night, June 20th?
I'm absolutely positive. The photos are time-stamped. Every time the photo's taken, it embeds it into the code of the photo. And when I upload it to my Flickr account, it actually says right on my Flickr account June 20th.
Why were you taking photos at the club that night?
Teddy and I usually go to clubs around Orlando, and we were hired to do nightlife photography, and that was just one of the nights we were working at Fusion.
John, who was she there with?
I really don't recall. Me and Teddy were bopping around that night, taking pictures of a lot of people. She just happened to be one of them, so I don't recall any specific people that she was there with.
Teddy, do you know who she was there with?
Not exactly. We showed up later in the evening, probably after midnight on that Friday night, and set up and took pictures just throughout the night until the club closed at 2.
Okay, and was she drinking?
I'm not exactly sure if she was drinking. I mean, it is a bar. A lot of people were drinking that night. I can't confirm or deny that she was or wasn't drinking, but I know it was just everyone was having a good time that night, I guess.
So, John, you had the opportunity to observe her then that night?
Not closely. I didn't scrutinize whatsoever. I just, like I said, we were walking around taking photos. She just happened to be in, I believe, 4 or 5 of the photos that we had taken.
And from what you saw, what was her mood? What was her demeanor?
She seemed happy, as were most of the people there that night. I mean, as you can see from the photo, she seemed all right, having a good time, just like people our age would that night. That was it.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Nothing out of the ordinary, really.
Teddy, do you know how many? Had you seen her at the Club Fusion at other times in these past in these past days since June 9th? Have you seen her besides that one night there?
Yes, I can recall her being there. I can't remember exactly how many Fridays she was there, but I had been taking photos at Fusion on every Friday night for like probably a month, coming up to the the 20th there, which was the last day I took photos. But I saw her definitely on what would be the 13th, I think, and the 6th.
Okay, the 6th and the 13th and the 20th. So this is a place, obviously, she likes to hang out.
20th. Well, I guess so. Usually it's about the same crowd every Friday night. It's just...
And Teddy, did you notice any change when you saw her in those weeks, on that Friday, the 6th, the 13th, the 20th, those days? Did you notice any change in her mood, her demeanor when she was at the club?
No, not necessarily at all. I really didn't come in contact with her too much, in passing, just talked to her a couple sentences here and there, but absolutely no out of the ordinary behavior.
How did she seem to you?
She seemed just fine. Like, I really, from the amount of time that I actually talked to her, I couldn't reasonably judge her.
She seemed fun. She seemed like she was having fun with her friends and just wearing really nice regalia and just having a good, decent time, just like anybody else would.
John, when you found out that she had been arrested, and you've been following, obviously, the headlines these days, What was your thought, knowing that you had her in these photos?
Well, it was funny to me at first because I had just met her that one night that I'd taken photos of her, and one night I went to Fusion, and I went there to take pictures again, and you know, everyone seemed down. They asked if I'd watched the news that night, and I hadn't. And then I went home and I saw, and I was shocked to see. I mean, I really don't know Caylee very well at all. I mean, very, very loosely. But I was shocked to see that someone I had come into contact with is in such a case of such, you know, severity.
I mean, sitting here tonight, guys, are you shocked to learn, now that you know her story, that she claims at the time she was at Fusion, her child was missing? Does that jive with the person you saw there? Can you reconcile that the woman you saw at that club is claiming to the world now that her child was kidnapped and missing at that time?
I don't know. It really hasn't really impacted us that much. I'm not, you know, it's not hitting me hard. I mean, it's kind of crazy that it's going on, but I don't have an opinion because I don't really, I'm not on either side. I'm not sure. I don't know Caylee that well. Yeah. I mean, Teddy can pretty much say the same.
Yeah, I didn't even know she had a daughter until the news broke about her daughter.
Joining us live now is Michael Walsh. He is co-counsel for Caylee Anthony. And Michael, I know you're just first getting a look at these, I assume, tonight as we are. Your reaction to what you just saw and heard?
I could only hear it. I can't see the photos from where I'm at.
And so your reaction to what you heard?
She worked there. She was one of the promotion girls at that club, so it would be expected that she was there. The fact that she's in some photos from a guy who said he didn't really observe her, he doesn't really know her, one of them didn't even know she had a daughter, it's a little hard to react to just that kind of statement. The fact that she was at the club, she worked there.
And how long had she worked at Fusion?
It's not a steady job. It's a promotional thing, so it's on and off for the last few months.
And had Caylee told you prior to tonight that she had worked at Fusion in the time Caylee was missing and had worked at promotional events?
Well, I just have to clarify. Today was my first day meeting with Caylee.
Okay,
so I didn't have an opportunity to speak to her before today.
But was that information that she made clear to you or your co-counsel?
Well, she's made a lot of things clear to us, but I would keep that under the attorney-client privilege.
So how is it you know, if you can tell us, that she worked at Fusion?
Well, some things I can tell you. She certainly told me that.
Okay. And Michael, let me ask you, because, you know, I mean, let's lay it out there. People see those photos, which I know you haven't seen, but it shows her with these guys and gals in bar shots, appearing to have a good time. People are going to be asking themselves how a woman whose child was missing and, according to her, had been kidnapped could behave in such a manner.
Well, I have to take issue with the date that you described as June 9th as the date that little Caylee was kidnapped. That's not the date she was kidnapped. It's sometime later in the month.
Well, what is the date? Because that comes from your client.
Right, it comes from my client to the police. It hasn't come from my client to the police while she's had the assistance of counsel. Obviously, she said some things that the police certainly have taken issue with regards to the veracity of it. And we've kind of explained the reason she said the things she said to the police was out of fear for her child's life.
So you're suggesting
I can't address what she said.
You're suggesting, so I'm clear, you're suggesting that she perhaps was not honest with the police when she said Caylee went missing on June 9th.
Yes, that is correct. That would not be an accurate statement.
And is it also correct that she would have then lied to her mother, Cindy, and her brother, Lee, who we heard on their 911 calls, believed when they called on July 15th that Caylee had been missing for over a month?
You call it a lie. I call it under the duress and pressure of somebody whose child has been kidnapped and told, if you say anything about it, your child will receive harm. So I think a lie is a material falsehood. I think this young girl was going through the pressures and stress of what she was dealing with.
Michael, is that what happened here? That I know we know that Caylee says Caylee was kidnapped, and that she had at least one communication from the alleged kidnapper, the babysitter. Are you now saying that the babysitter made a threat to Caylee?
Yes, and there are other people besides the babysitter involved.
Can you tell us more? Who?
No, I can't tell you who.
Have you spoken with either Jess or Juliet, two women who Casey says knew this babysitter, Zenaida?
We've spoken to people who knew her. When the police looked for the Zenaida, they found the wrong Zenaida. So that's why there's some miscommunication as to whether or not the Zenaida the police referred to and the other people are referred to is the same Zenaida that Casey's referring to.
And Michael, let me ask you, is your client willing to take a polygraph?
At this point, it depends on what the conditions are. Initially, yes, but not if it's going to be simply used to not look for Casey. If it's going to be used for no other purpose than to prosecute her, then no.
So that door is still open?
Right, because this is a situation. It's in the hands of the police and the prosecutors whether or not they believe her. There's not a third neutral party out there who's going to decide whether they believe her. So there are none so deaf as those who won't hear.
Michael, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it.